bedtime story is brought to you by Naked Bulbs. Ideas so bright, they need a lampshade. There. Tonight, a bedtime story for all the boys and girls occupying Wall Street and streets all across America. An American Fable by me, Carrie Johnson. Once upon a time, there lived a pretty little girl. Her eyes were clear and sparkling. Her skin was smooth and flawless. Her hair shone in the sun. She skipped and played happily, and as she grew, her musical laughter filled her father's house with joy. The pretty little girl's father was good and wise, and because of his great love for his daughter, he took infinite care to discipline and correct and instruct her until she was full of virtue and her heart was as beautiful as her form. So supreme was she in body and soul, in fact, that by the morning of her 16th birthday, she had become the most beautiful girl in the world. This made her horrible birth defect all the more a shameful pity. One bright summer day, as she was picking raspberries in her father's field, she came upon a boy with very large ears. Standing in the presence of her exceptional beauty made him uncomfortably aware of his large ears, and they began to burn. "Hello," she said, her voice bright and innocent. "Would you like to share some raspberries?" She extended her hand to the boy, filled with ripe fruit. Then he saw her horrible birth defect. "You have 7 fingers on your right hand!" he exclaimed. "Yes," she admitted, "but it makes me frightfully good at berry picking." 7 fingers, you have 7 fingers, the boy shouted. "Yuck! I will not share berries with a freak!" The most beautiful girl in the world ran home crying. She cried all evening and found no comfort in the loving words of her father. At last she went to bed, but found no rest there. Finally, in the darkness, she walked to the kitchen, seeking the meat cleaver. As the clock struck midnight, the most beautiful girl in the world brought the sharp edge of the meat cleaver down upon her hand, severing the 2 fingers that had so offended the boy with the big ears. Hearing the clatter of the knife as it fell, her father ran to the kitchen and found his beloved daughter in a pool of blood. "See, father," she said, holding up the hand, "I have rid myself of my birth defect." Then she fainted. The next day she awoke in her cozy room to a bright morning sun and a painful throbbing in her right hand. When her father brought her breakfast to her, he informed her that the loss of so much blood had severely weakened her. But he had managed to stitch up the gaping wound and thought that if she rested, it would heal in time. "Will it leave a scar?" she asked. "Yes," he answered softly, for he could not tell a lie. "A large one. But it will fade a bit with each day, and in time it will hardly be noticeable at all." After finishing her breakfast, the most beautiful girl in the world fell back to sleep and dreamed the most beautiful dreams. Some time later, as she was picking apples in her father's orchard, she came upon the boy with the large ears a second time. This time he was with a group of friends. One was more rude than the other, and the girls were not the least measure more mannerly than the boys. As they walked along, they insulted each other with their words and poked and pinched each other with their fingers. "Hello," she said. "Oh, it's the freak," the boy with the large ears said, as they began to burn once more. The other young people just stood there with their mouths hanging open. Then, one by one, as their eyes took in the exceptional beauty of the most beautiful girl in the world, Each one became more aware of his or her own imperfections, and their faces began to twist into the most unpleasant expressions. "Look," she said proudly, holding up the hand so the boy with the big ears could see, "I have fixed my birth defect. The part that offends is no more." "That scar is disgusting," the boy with the large ears observed, and all the children laughed. "Where'd you get that dress?" a skinny girl asked. "My father bought it for me," the most beautiful girl answered. "It's childish and outdated," the skinny girl announced disdainfully. Why don't you come along with us?" a boy with a lisp asked. "I think I should be getting home. It's late and my father doesn't like me to stay out after dark," the most beautiful girl answered. "You still live at home?" the boy chided. "We've all moved to town. No one tells us what to do. Come along with us," he invited. And they all insisted. And she went along. It was late when the most beautiful girl in the world finally went home. Her father was not pleased. The next morning she took her lovely dresses out of her closet and threw them at her father's feet. "These dresses are childish and outdated. I don't want them. What's more, I'm too grown up to live in your house. I'm moving to town where no one will tell me what to do," she declared. Her good father was deeply grieved, but he permitted his daughter to make her own choices. Her acquaintances that lived in the town soon discovered that the most beautiful girl was extraordinarily good at baking pies. She would pick berries or apples and make her pies, and was quick to share them with all who asked. At first they thanked her for her delicious gifts, but by and by they just went into her house and took as many slices of pie as they wanted. Later, when they found there was no pie left, they helped themselves to the fruit she had intended for ingredients. One evening, a group of her peers gathered outside of her house. "We want more pie.